So I found this book at the thrift store. It's The History of the United States. Julian Hawthorne, and it goes up to 1910. This one's a second edition, so he added some stuff. I have a hard time starting and finishing nonfiction books, but this one grabbed me kind of right off the bat. And this part was in the introduction. I just thought it was really interesting. Modern history tends more and more to become philosophic, to be an argument and an interpretation rather than a bold statement of fact. I just think it's interesting that even in 1910, people were talking about how history is written by the winners, basically. Like, whoever's in control is the one that controls the history of how we remember things. I doubt there's very many people who are interested in what a 114-year-old history book has to say, but I kind of thought it was cool. Part 2 of interesting tidbits found in a 1910 history book. Okay, I'm going to get into like the main meat of this book, but the last paragraph of the introduction was too good not to share. The best use of history is probably to stimulate readers to think for themselves about the events portrayed. And if I have succeeded in doing that, I shall be satisfied. The history of the United States does mean something. What is it? Are we a decadent fruit that is rotten before it is ripe? Or are we the bud of the mightiest tree of time? The materials for forming your judgment are here. Form it accordingly as your faith and hope may dictate. Julian Hawthorne. Part 3 of interesting tidbits found in a 1910 U.S. history book. It's literally going to take me forever to get through this book because there's interesting stuff every other page. For instance, in the first chapter called Before Dawn, the author was talking about Spain and England and how they wanted to come and basically ravage this land. And I found this line. These stories were the offspring of the legends of the alchemists of the Dark Ages, who had professed to make gold in their crucibles. It was as good to pick up gold in armfuls on the earth as to manufacture it in a laboratory. So then, of course, I had to look up, can you even manufacture gold in a laboratory? Yeah, you can. And the earliest that I found that they had been doing it was like the 1920s. Sorry, these roosters will not shut up. But makes me also think that they were probably doing it before that, and we don't do it anymore because it costs more to manufacture gold than it is to find it. That was interesting, but he mentions something about the history of the Native Americans and how a civilization before them, and I just thought it was interesting. Maybe we talked about this in history class and I just was not listening, but I thought this was interesting. Oh, and FYI, there's a couple of things in here that are not politically correct at this point in time. At first, it was taken for granted that the Indians, and he does use that word in parentheses, as the red men were ignorantly called, were the aboriginal denizens of the country. But the mounds, ruined cities, pottery, and other remains since found in all parts of the land, concerning which the Indians could furnish no information, and which showed a state of civilization far in advance of theirs, were proof that a great people had existed here in the remote past, who had flourished and disappeared without leaving any trace whereby they could be accounted for or identified. They were an enigma compared with which the archaeological problems of the Old World are an open book. We can form no conception of the conditions under which they lived, of their personal characteristics, of their language, habits, or religion. We cannot determine whether these forerunners of the Indians were one people in several stages of development, or several peoples in simultaneous occupation of the land. We can establish no trustworthy connection between them and any Asiatic races, and yet we are reluctant to believe them isolated from the rest of mankind. If they had dwelt here from their creation, why had they not progressed further in civilization? And if they had immigrated hither from another continent, why do their remains not indicate their source? By what agency did they perish, and when? The more keenly we strive to penetrate their mystery, the more perplexing does it appear. The further we investigate them, the more alien from anything we are or have known do they seem. Elusive as mist and questionable as night, they form a suggestive background on which the vivid and energetic drama of our novel civilization stands out in sharp relief. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting. Part 4 of Interesting Tidbits found in a 1910 U.S. history book. Democracy, however unwelcome in its first and outward aspect it may appear, is the logical issue of human experiments in government. It is susceptible of much abuse and open to many corruptions, but these cannot penetrate far below the surface. They are external and obvious, not vital and secret, because at heart, the voice of democracy is the voice of God. It may be silent for long, so that some will disbelieve or despair, and say in their haste that democracy is a fraud or a failure. But at last its tones will be heard, and its word will be irresistible and immortal. And one more little tidbit. The most dangerous enemy of America has been, not Spain, France, England, or any other nation in arms, but our own material prosperity.